30 years of efforts to convince people that peace is possible. This Israeli government killed it.
That's the Jordanian Foreign Minister, Ayman Safadi, at the UN in September of this year. What he's referring to is an almost forgotten brokered peace treaty between Israel and its biggest Arab neighbour, Jordan, which many thought was impossible at the time, but has lasted for 30 years. The agreement ended the state of war, which had existed between the two countries since the formation of Israel in 1948 and had carried through to the First Intifada, Arab-Israeli War, and established mutual diplomatic relations. And ever since, the treaty has endured all types of pressures. But with Israel's latest bombardment of Gaza following the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023, and conflict spreading into other areas of the region, it's facing its greatest test yet.
We must retain overriding security control there to prevent the resurgence of terror, to ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
Can this signal of hope from the 90s hold up to current stresses? Or is the future now in freefall, as many have speculated?
I think the dilemma today is, can Jordan continue with its economic and security cooperation with Israel in the same way that it did before October 7? I don't think that is possible.
This is real, and this is serious. I'm sure they're all hoping that Gaza ends quickly.
Until there is a change in Jerusalem, nothing good is going to happen. Not in Gaza, not in South Lebanon, not on the West Bank, and not in Israel's standing worldwide. We are sliding in a very dangerous trajectory.
October 26, 1994. Jordan, a country with strong Palestinian ties, leaps to become the second Arab country to sign a peace accord with Israel after Egypt. The ceremony took place at the southern border crossing of Wadi Araba between the two countries, with then U.S. President Bill Clinton observing.
United States of America, William Jefferson Clinton. Thank you. I say to the people of Israel and Jordan, now you must make this peace real, to turn no man's land into every man's home, to take down the barbed wire, to remove the deadly mines, to help the wounds of war to heal.
Among those who helped to broker the historic peace treaty was Marwan Mashir, who later became Jordan's first ambassador to Israel. He says the peace talks were making no progress until Yitzhak Rabin became the Israeli prime minister.
For 6 months, negotiations went nowhere until there was a change in government in Israel and Rabin was elected.
Robert Satloff, a Middle East expert at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, agrees that the relationship between Rabin and King Hussein was crucial. Two statesmen, an Arab and an Israeli, found common ground in unexpected similarities.
The depth of mutual respect between King Hussein and Yitzhak Rabin was something you can't make up. They had been adversaries, but they had been partners. They understood each other. They both had a military background. There was a conviviality, an unspoken partnership that it is quite rare to see. Bill Clinton was important, but he was as much of an observer as he was a participant in that relationship.
The peace treaty settled issues about territory, security, water, and overall supported cooperation between the states. Nimrod Novik was a senior advisor on foreign policy to the former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. He says at the time the Israeli public wanted to see a different future.
Our greatest surprise was the realization that there was no pushback, no serious pushback from the Israeli public. And mind you, this is the Israeli public who for decades considered the PLO a group of bloody terrorists headed by arch-terrorist Yasser Arafat. That was the picture. And here, overnight, there was an embrace of the prospects of peace.
Prominent Jordanian scholar Mustafa Hamarne was a confidant of King Hussein. He says the Jordanian leader's messaging was key to getting Israel on board.
Hussein started addressing the Israeli public opinion and American Jewry especially, and American public opinion in general, because he really built tremendous goodwill, and that's what he had hoped for, to build tremendous goodwill to secure the Israelis to make concessions.
The agreement helped to reimagine the relationship between the two states and has since withstood a barrage of tests, but somehow it managed to endure.
From an Israeli standpoint, this is their longest border. Having a good relationship there is paramount. I think from the Jordanian side, there is much in a warmer atmosphere they can gain from the Israelis.
Some argue the squeeze on natural resources in the region keeps everyone in check.
Jordan, without the water from Israel, would go dry, and the people would rise up tomorrow because there isn't enough drinking water in this country, and they have poorly managed much of what they do have. Israel, without Jordan as a security partner to be its first line of defense to the east, would face enormous difficulties in everything that it does to defend its country. The Jordanians don't provide this contribution to Israel's security out of the kindness of their heart. It's because they share common adversaries.
Just as the strategic depth of the Sinai is essential for Israeli security on the Egyptian side, Jordan, far, far bigger than Israel, is an Israeli strategic depth.
Despite the treaty holding for the past 30 years, in October of 2023, Israel began a military campaign against Hamas after an attack on its civilians. Since then, over 40,000 Gazans have been killed, many women and children, with no end in sight as the war looks set to spread. Jordan is now asking questions that could put the treaty on the line.
Can you ask Israelis what's their narrative other than I'm going to continue to go to war, I'm going to kill this and kill that and destroy this and this that? The amount of damage that Israeli government has done, 30 years of efforts to convince people that peace is possible, this Israeli government killed it.
And the atmosphere is changing.
Today, the relationship between Jordan and Israel has never been worse politically. Because today, it is not only popular Jordan feeling that Israel is working against its interests. Today, after October 7, after Gaza, official Jordan feels that the Israelis have intentions on Jordan that are not benign.
Both sides are now juggling with enraged populations and a public opinion that is unlikely to swing.
We will fight until we achieve victory, total victory. There is no substitute for it.
The last year has been perhaps the most difficult year of Israel's history, and it has been an enormously challenging year for Jordanian politics and Jordanian leadership. The government of Jordan had a very difficult time managing how to deal with public opinion that was enormously affected by the events in Gaza, trying to differentiate between support for Palestinian civilians, injured and killed in this war, and support for Hamas, or at least sympathy and understanding for Hamas. And there was a huge gray, blurry line on this.
But like we have seen in the past, many analysts still say change has to happen from within Israel first.
Look, we have a prime minister who has damaged the relationship repeatedly in each one of his terms in office, and they've been more numerous than I wish. Until there is a change in Jerusalem, nothing good is going to happen. Not in Gaza, not in South Lebanon, not on the West Bank, and not in Israel's standing worldwide. We are sliding in a very dangerous trajectory.
So do any of these experts see the peace treaty lasting another 30 years?
I think so. Now, it is eminently possible that one or both of the parties takes steps that that effectively rip up the treaty. One can't rule it out. But this treaty has proven elastic enough to withstand some pretty severe shocks. And I think it has that ability to do that over time, and hopefully, wisdom will prevail, and the leaderships in the two sides will continue for decades on to see the value that they have in maintaining at least the strategic pillars which undergird their relationship, even if they have very severe political disputes, as they do today.
Yes. I'm a victim of my own genetic deformation of being an eternal optimist. I do believe is not the right word. My analytical conclusion is that the next government will do what it takes to start reversing the trend from the slide towards an ever conflicted and bleeding one-state reality to the opposite direction of gradual, security-based separation between the two peoples.
I believe we will be celebrating the treaty in another 30 years because it is a response to the needs of both sides. And if you can remove the Palestinian issue as one that is not just an irritant but a major constraint, then the natural ability between the two sides to cooperate and to benefit from it goes up.
Abrogation or abandoning the peace treaty is not on the table for Jordan. Having said so, I think the dilemma today is, can Jordan continue with its economic and security cooperation with Israel in the same way that it did before October 7th? I don't think that is possible. A revision of the peace treaty does not mean abandoning it, but I do think it will mean a cool peace between Jordan and Israel without much cooperation until the core issue is addressed. And the core issue today is the occupation. If the occupation does not end, then Jordanian fears that Israel might try to solve the problem at its expense are going to stay there.